The Acadian expulsion, deportation and the development of dialects, the history of Cajun culture and French deportation that you may not know. The following chain of events occurred because of Great Britain's attempt at ethnically cleansing the area of French-speaking Catholic inhabitants. The Acadians occupied Nova Scotia's territory since 1604. They were largely left alone to tend their fields and grew independent over time. They became friends and allies with the Micmac to where they felt secure enough even after sovereignty was passed to Britain, Utrecht. As tensions continued to rise between Britain and France, the Acadians were expected to take an oath of allegiance, but they would not. Recent immigrants from New England coveted the Acadian-occupied land, and traders from Boston continually wondered why it was that aliens possessed such rich lands in a British colony. When Colonel John Winslow read aloud the deportation order, he admitted it was disagreeable to him, but that he was to obey the orders he received. March 2013. Where have we heard that line before? Oh yeah, Barajas 2016, Moses 2026, Wikipedia contributors 2020. I'm not saying the Holocaust is comparable by any means to each individual instance of deportation or genocide. What I am saying is that historically, just following orders does not hold up. Acadia included now Canadian maritime provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island, along with part of the United States, specifically part of the state of Maine. The expulsion occurred between 1755 and 1764 during the French and Indian War. There was an estimated 14,100 Acadians, and approximately 11,500 of them were deported, 5,000 of which died of disease, starvation, or shipwrecks. According to a census from 1764, 2,600 Acadians were in Nova Scotia at the time. While the event is widely considered a crime against humanity, scholars debate whether it's considered a genocide. Wikipedia contributors 2019a, which for future reference the UN describes as use of any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. United Nations, 1948. Meaning also the forced sterilization of Puerto Ricans due to U.S. colonial policy in the 1960s, Florida Now, and D-Land 2025, American slavery, and ICE removing children from their parents can all in some form be considered a genocide or a deliberate attempt in the intent to destroy in whole or part an ethnic or racial group. Of course, there are more examples. These are just the ones I had on my mind when I was writing this. Intent is considered the most crucial factor, and while I do not know the intent behind the removal of the Acadians, as we get deeper into the history, I will deliberate further upon whether I think it fits under this distinction. In 1710, Britain captured Port Royal, which was the capital of Acadia, during the War of the Spanish Succession. Then, in 1713, under the Peace of Utrecht, the territory was relinquished to Great Britain whilst still allowing the Acadians to keep their land. However, many of the occupants were reluctant to sign an unconditional oath of allegiance, and over the following decades, they participated in French military operations and helped maintain supply lines. Due to this, the British, seeking to eliminate future military threat and cut supply lines, aimed to remove them from the area. They did this without differentiating those who had and had not taken up arms, ordering all Acadians to be expelled. Before 1758, the Acadians were deported to the 13 colonies in the first wave of the expulsion. Following that, they began being deported to either France or Britain in the second wave. A significant number of the people deported to France and Britain then migrated to Spanish Louisiana, and Acadians became Cajuns. While the British achieved their military goals, the result of the deportations was devastating. Both the primary civilian population and the economy of the region fell. In 1764, British government passed an order that permitted Acadians to return to British territories in small groups if they took an oath of allegiance. Today, the Acadians live primarily in New Brunswick, some regions of Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Quebec, and northern Maine. Important note: deportation campaigns began in 1755. In 1759, New England Ranger Lieutenant Hazen engaged in warfare against the Acadians in what is now known as St. Anne's Massacre. Hazen and 15 men pillaged and burned the village of 147 buildings, 2 Catholic churches, and some barns and stables. They burned a storehouse that contained large quantities of hay, wheat, peas, oats, and other foodstuffs. They also killed 212 horses, about 5 cows, and many pigs. The Rangers burned a church just west of the location as well, and the leader of the Acadian militia refused to swear an oath, even though the Rangers tortured and killed his daughter and 3 grandchildren in front of him. These Rangers also took 6 prisoners, Wikipedia Contributors 2019a. Not only are these actions deplorable and incredibly wasteful of resources, but they do hit 2 of the acts under the description of genocide. Number 1, killing, and number 2, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group. The Micmac and Acadians worked together against oppression, and in 1757, British settlers had to completely withdraw from Lawrencetown as raids prevented them from leaving their houses. In 1762, after the French conquered Newfoundland, the Acadians and the natives were in a small sort of celebrating. British officials became alarmed when natives gathered close to 2 towns, Halifax and Lunenburg, where there were large groups of Acadians. The government then attempted to ship 1,300 people to Boston. However, the Massachusetts government refused the admission of the Acadians and sent them back to Halifax. The Mi'kmaq and Acadians' resistance in the Halifax region was apparent. The epic poem Evangeline, A Tale of Acadie, written in 1847 about the troubles of a fictional character by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, an American poet, spread awareness of the Acadian expulsion and memorialized it. Wikipedia Contributors 2019a. Though not considered a scientific historical document, there was a widespread positive response to the publication. Wikipedia Contributors 2019c. One interesting and quite dramatic response to the poem wrote, "You really ought to be hanged, drawn, and quartered for writing in hexameter." Wagon Kent, I probably said that last name wrong, 1955, pages 160 to 161. Deportation destinations by number. During the first wave of the deportations, Acadians were assigned to rural communities in the following states. However, they did refuse to stay put and tended to migrate towards impoverished French-speaking Catholic neighborhoods. This is what British officials tried to discourage, but as more Acadians threatened to migrate north to French-controlled regions, they began to believe their policy had failed and started deporting to France in the second wave. Massachusetts had 2,000 people deported. Virginia had 1,100 arrive, Maryland had 1,000, Connecticut 700, Pennsylvania 500, North Carolina and South Carolina respectively 500 each, Georgia 400, New York 250, for a total of 6,950 people deported to the 13 colonies. In the second wave, Britain received 866 people, and France received 3,500 for a final total of 11,316. Maryland, the Irish Catholics showed charity by taking the Acadians' orphaned children into their homes. In Massachusetts, some Acadians were forced into servitude or labor. Children were taken away from their parents and distributed to other families throughout Massachusetts. Wikipedia Contributors 2019a. Perhaps it wasn't Britain's intended result of the deportations, but here's the third item named that falls under the description of genocide, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Connecticut prepared for the arrival of 700 Acadians. Legislature declared that Acadians should be made welcome, helped settle under the most advantageous conditions, or if they must be sent away, that appropriate measures must be taken for their transfer. Pennsylvania accommodated 500 Acadians, but because they arrived unexpectedly, they unfortunately had to remain in port on their vessels for months. Virginia refused to accept the Acadians due to lack of notice, to which they were detained at Williamsburg, where many of them died from disease and starvation. They were then sent to Britain and held prisoner until 1764 under the Treaty of Paris. Those who were the most resistant to the British were sent to southern colonies such as the Carolinas and Georgia. About 1,400 Acadians were put to work on plantations. Many Acadians in Georgia received passports from authorities in the hopes they would move to other territories. South Carolina followed Georgia's lead and provided the Acadians with 2 vessels as well. With this, some of the Acadians returned to the Bay of Fundy, though many were captured and imprisoned. Only about 900 managed to return to Acadia. British officials did not directly deport Acadians to Louisiana. However, following their expulsion, many Acadians found their way to friendly locales like France. some of which left France to settle in Louisiana, which was a colony of Spain at the time. In 1762, Louisiana was transferred to the Spanish government, and due to a positive relationship between Spain and France, and because they shared something within the Catholic religion, some Acadians took an oath of allegiance to the Spanish government. Shortly after that, the Acadians made up the largest ethnic group in Louisiana. Some Acadians were sent to places in the Caribbean, like French Guiana or the Falkland Islands, to colonize, but were unsuccessful. Others migrated to Saint Domingue, but fled to New Orleans after the Haitian Revolution. Louisiana's population founded the modern Cajun population. The French word Acadian became Cajun, which became anglicized as the word Cajun. Wikipedia Contributors 2019a. Cajun culture in Louisiana. To try to wrap this up, I would like to take some time to recognize the culture that sprung up, a resistance to the attempts to stomp out an already existing culture. The resource I found states that sometimes the word Cajun as a descriptive word overshadows the contributions to Louisiana's culture that Creole, Native American, Vietnamese, African American, and other people made. The source goes on to mention that the Acadians and the creation of the word Cajun, which I mentioned just previously as well, stating that before the area was known as Cajun, it was recognized as Creole. Both groups originate from French-speaking persons, Cajuns from the white people of Acadia, and Creoles from black or mixed-race people of New Orleans. The Acadians' arrival forced them to adapt. More than just finding a new home, the climate was vastly different. Earlier inhabitants of the land had to teach the Acadians how to survive. Indigenous peoples, enslaved West Africans, German, and Spanish settlers taught the Acadians how to grow rice and build with cypress. In turn, the combining of these cultures created a Creole identity. Pineda Gonzalez Rubio, 2023. For those that may not know, Creole is a word that means a couple of different things. A lot of people take it to mean a mixed descended person, but it also means the homogenization or blending of language to form a new mother tongue, a language that has evolved from two or more other languages as a result of contact between speakers of the languages and that serves as the native language of a speech community. Merriam-Webster 2018. Pidgin becomes a Creole. On its basis, a pidgin is a simplified means of linguistic communication. A pidgin language is built out of necessity when people do not share a common language but need to communicate in a short period of history. The combination of so much culture created new foods and music, but it also changed religion and language. Parts of Louisiana are still Catholic. However, Spanish and African heritage changed the way Catholicism acts and looks in Louisiana, with celebrations like Cour de Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday Run, and Eucharistic water processions like Fête du Teche, Louisiana Catholicism is set apart from the rest. Pineda Gonzalez Rubio, 2023. Creole became synonymous with Louisiana's culture. They resisted Americanization after the Louisiana Purchase. Internet Archive, 2022. In the 1920s, there was a push to unite the country under the English language. Wikipedia Contributors 2019b. Educators forbid the speaking of other languages in school and punish students physically. The Americanization of ethnic groups often did not end with the loss of their language. Instead, it largely affected how these groups saw race. The racial lens that the United States and America sought to inflict on everyone chipped away at the comfortability in aligning with black cultures. Many laws divided black and white Americans into strict categories, for example, Jim Crow and the one-drop rule. By and large, Acadians stopped aligning themselves as white Creoles. Pineda Gonzalez Rubio, 2023. In fact, the Grand Derangement started being mythologized. Wikipedia Contributors 2019a, and tourism to Nova Scotia became popular. Cajun started being used as an insult against the proletariat of Creoles. Over time, Acadians began to align with a strong sense of patriotism and embrace American identity. In the 1960s, the Cajun identity was to be revived. Senator James R. Domingo, I probably also said that last name wrong, and Senator Edgar G. Mouton Jr. pushed for the French language to be reintroduced into school systems. In 1968, the Council for the Development of French in Louisiana was established through the passing of Act No. 409. Many activists saw this as elitist because Codeville advocated for the revival of French but discouraged the use of Creole. Many who supported the council also mocked other aspects of the culture. Still, into the 70s, the movement grew, and Cajun music was brought to a national audience. This was when the identifier Cajun revitalized. In the 80s and 90s, there was a fascination built around Cajun culture. Unfortunately, this made a lot of stereotypes popular. Restaurants started selling Cajun-inspired dishes. Movies depicted Cajuns with little understanding of the accent or cultural region, treating Cajun country and New Orleans as the same thing, and all around paying little respect to the very stories they took from. Still, the culture grew, and at the end of the 20th century, music, festivals, tourism, along with the development and education surrounding it grew. Pineda Gonzalez Rubio, 2023. Closing thoughts. Ultimately, I do find that the Acadian expulsion is in some form a genocide, just like I believe in some form the Trail of Tears was a genocide. I think the fact that intent could be used for the entire basis of an argument is silly. I believe it's not the target you aim for, it's the one that you hit. If you say something that comes wrong and it hurts someone, do you say you didn't mean it like that to make them feel any better? Would it make you feel better if the roles were reversed? If you accidentally kill a man, does you not meaning to kill him make his parents feel better? Yes, intent matters, absolutely, I will not deny that, but in the end, it doesn't change the results. Thousands of people died because they wouldn't bow down to a crown that hadn't paid a lick of attention to them in years. I don't think intent matters when many people die. I think the people that helped them and let them stay in their homes deserve grace, as well as the people who tried to but did not have the means to in such little time. However, the people that acted just as harshly against them do not deserve the peace of mind of not being labeled against humanity. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 34. If you cannot see how all of these events across history stem from the same things, we may very well be on two different planes of existence. All life is sacred, and I do not find it up to us to decide who lives and who dies. When you think that way, vote that way, and act that way, you are telling everyone above you that you think life is sacred only under the correct stipulations. And when you believe in something like that, you'll soon find that the people with more money and more power think that way too, and soon you'll be wishing you'd have just given them some of your oats. I cannot change a mind. I can only hope to give you the information to change it for yourself. Thank you for learning, and if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and all of my references will be in the description below. They will be in the Substack and Patreon links, as well as if you would like to read the writing, that's what they're at the end of. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!